Hey guys, Youngblood with you for the 86th episode of the Inbox, and before we get to the questions, I did want to let you know I've gotten pretty far behind on the questions, and a lot's happened since we've actually, been asking these questions in these videos. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just say I'm drawing the line here, and we're going to go ahead and start on this video with new questions going forward. And I think that's just the right thing to do because 3.0 brings a lot of new things that people are going to have questions about, and it just kind of makes sense. So if I haven't answered one of your questions before and it's still relevant or you haven't gotten the information, please go ahead and drop it in here, and I'll do my best to get to it. But with that going on, let's go ahead and jump into our first question from Anubis Load, who says, love your channel, definitely my go-to for Star Citizen anything, thank you. My question is, if money isn't any issue, what would be the best space superiority platform out of the large ships, excluding capitals but including all limited editions like the 890 Jump, the Phoenix, etc.? Well, if you asked me this question a couple weeks ago, which you did, obviously 3 months ago, I probably would have said something like, I don't know, maybe like the Constellation Andromeda, just based on the missile loadout in conjunction with the turrets and the fighter that's actually on board. It doesn't necessarily fit the bill for space superiority, but a lot of the larger ships don't really do that. Now, since then, we've actually got the Anvil Hammerhead, which I think is the perfect space superiority platform with six turrets with size 4 weapons on them, basically letting you bring 24 size 4 weapons and I believe 32 size 3 missiles. That's the ship. It's subcapital in size at about 100 meters long right now. I'm sure it'll grow a little bit, but that's the one. I mean, that's going to be the scariest ship as far as running escort and dealing with multiple smaller fighters and everything like that. I think that's probably the one of the larger ships. Up next is Stephen Williamson, says, depending on the negative impacts, I think I'll keep the finish of my ship looking worn. Here's a question I've had. Will ships start out looking brand new until you get the wear and tear from usage, so they start out with a certain level of wear and marks from flight? Ships off the production line are going to look fresh. Some of them don't look that way right now, because, like the Constellation line, for example, because they were kind of, I guess, showcasing some of the different wear that they plan on doing in the game. But if you get a new ship, it should be without any, markings on it or anything like that. You also mentioned, I can't cite any sources, but in my reading and video watching about the Pegasus and Bengal, I swear I heard that part of the armaments of both was nukes. Maybe I'm not remembering this correctly. If they do have nukes, I imagine they'll be very expensive. Nukes are not planned to be part of the game at this point. I think they're hard to implement, and I don't think they like the idea of just the idea of nukes. So to my knowledge, no. Pegasus and Bengal are not. I think the Pegasus is supposed to have 1 or 2 STS turrets on board, but its main armament is the ships that it brings along. It's an escort carrier. The Bengal's main armament is the STS turrets on board, as well as the massive railgun that it actually carries along. So, no, I'm not planning on seeing nukes. Raft Soldier says, hey STL, love your videos, they're a huge help, thank you. Has CIG ever said anything about making an app to go with Star Citizen? Ideally something to work as an MFD when flying, or at least some sort of Moby Glass so you can take care of various in-game small activities like job management or purchases even when you're away from your PC. So there is going to be an official app. It's really going to be designed to be more of like a Spectrum extension, so you can kind of talk to people that are in and out of game, whether you're at your PC or not. I wouldn't be surprised if there was some sort of Moby Glass integration as well, to where you could actually see things like inventory on your phone. But honestly, it's so easy to pull that up right now in 3.0 that I don't think that's necessarily going to be something that's super helpful. As far as like actual MFD control, I don't know if we're going to see that maybe down the line. Rocket Power Grid and some of the, add-ons that you can get, like from producers like a Third, who's a community member, they actually give you control of your MFDs, and I'm not sure if that's been updated for 3.0 yet. I haven't used it in a while, but those are actually function pretty well and are pretty cool, so you could have a tablet or a phone set up and control your MFDs by doing so. Michael T says, do you think the in-game tractor beams will work on people? It would be helpful for extracting someone from a location without having to land. You could also say stuff like, beam me up, Scotty. I think this is a little bit of a to be determined, but actually in the video that we got today, where the team was talking about the new Drake ships and the different options, they were talking about tractor beams and how you could probably end up using it on people, but it wouldn't necessarily mean that you would be totally restricted from movement. Like, you have the ability to use your thrusters on your spacesuit to be able to kind of counteract some of that. So based on that conversation, I think it is going to be feasible. We'll need to see what that implementation looks like. Zero Cool says, I got a question. With the bigger ships, do you think it will be possible for a ship to be destroyed but the people inside survive without ejecting? Absolutely, and I think this is supposed to be the case for all of the ships. Ideally, you shouldn't have situations to where ships just explode for no reason, which we kind of have today, right? You end up destroying a ship to a point to it explodes. And that's one of the points of item system, or the item system 2.0. They want to be able to have the components take damage, and whatever that component is doing in your ship, it should end up having that specific impact. So if you blow out, an engine, the ship shouldn't explode. It should just stop flying. And we get a little bit of that in 2.6.3, but not necessarily the way it's going to be fully fleshed out. So yeah, absolutely. You should be able to disable something like a Caterpillar or a Starfare and then be able to board, and everybody on board should be fine. If you kill life support, though, if people aren't in a spacesuit or you blow a hole in the side and the atmosphere vents out, then people could end up dying. Charlie Eggs says, "Hi STL, do you think that that's for exploration purposes? Smaller ships will be more fleshed out with modules, such as an Avenger, for example, tuning the cargo bay into a scanning exploration module room? Or do you think that exploration will be catered for ships that were originally designed for that purpose or of exploration?" I think the ships that are currently made to be explorers are going to have a head start because they already have all the components on board and they were kind of designed with that in mind. That being said, like if you consider like the Freelancer Dur, it's essentially just a Freelancer with, some extra modules slapped on and some extended fuel tanks like that. So I think we're going to get some customization. Like maybe you could mount fuel pods on an Avenger to extend its range, and maybe you could swap out some of the avionics for less of a combat purpose and more of an exploration purpose. Maybe, you get a module in the back to kind of boost some of your amplitude. Like, I think you're going to be able to turn a lot of ships into explorers, and I think they're going to be pretty proficient at that, but I don't necessarily think you're going to get it up to the case of, like, you're not going to turn an Avenger into a Carrack, for example. So there's going to be some limitations there, but you're going to get more flexibility than we have today. And our last two questions are patron questions. The first from Rockseeker. Will LTI insurance cover the hull of ships that's lost in unregulated non-UEE space? It should. It's possible that you get warnings or something that say, your claim price is going to cost more if you take on this mission. But honestly, I think LTI is not going to be that complicated in insurance in general. I think it's going to cover whatever you have. And maybe if you file claims more often, your price increases or something like that, just to kind of give you something to think about. But no, I don't think you're going to necessarily see it. I think it's going to be you're more likely to lose your ship going into unregulated space, and because of that, you may end up having to pay the price to expedite your return, or you may have to pay for components that weren't necessarily covered in that initial package, like that type of thing. Or you're just going to have to say, I lost a Carrack. A Carrack takes 3 days for insurance to recover, and then all of a sudden you're impacted from what options you have in a game perspective. But I don't think you're going to see any part of space where you're just not covered. And the last one is from Dr. Kessler. Says, comparing the Ursa to the base Tumbler Cyclone, or Tumbril Cyclone, if both are $50, is the Rover hands down the best choice, or why would someone opt for the Cyclone? Other than the aesthetics, the Rover comes with a turret, more room for people and cargo, I'm assuming. Guessing it not as fast, but not sure. Second part, if I buy a land vehicle and don't have a ship to transport it, do I just need to find a landing spot planet side I can spawn my land vehicle? Lastly, do I need a dock vehicle on landing pad before leaving the planet to ensure it's not stolen or blown up? So, Ursa versus Cyclone, looking at it, they're pretty different in a way. The Cyclone carries less cargo, the Rover carries more. Rover has more people options, but it's a lot slower. So if you're talking about doing like exploration on a planet, it's about how much time you have to dedicate to that. So, the Cyclone may be able to, get from point A to B faster. It may handle terrain a little bit better, being more of kind of like a dune buggy-esque type of craft. And then I think eventually you'll get some of that flexibility to where you can end up doing some like module swaps in the verse, so you can end up having, maybe a turret on the back, or maybe you can end up using the EMP or the missile launchers. Like, hopefully that's some flexibility that we get, and you'll start seeing some differences. For me, the Ursa is the better choice because I like versatility better than kind of specific roles, but we'll have to see what flexibility comes. As to the picking up a ground vehicle, right now in 3.0, I can take an Avenger, fly to Shubin Mining Facility on Yela, and spawn like an Ursa or like a Dragonfly or something like that. That's not going to be the case in versions further down the line. You're not going to magically have your vehicle appear. You're going to have to find a way to transport it. So if you buy one and you don't have a way to transport it, you're going to need a friend to do it for you, or maybe you can pay a service to do that. And then as far as the way you dock your ship, or you land it, or you leave it, I'm not positive what that's going to be, and honestly, I don't know if CIG knows yet either. You know, I think if you log out and you leave your ship there, and that's where you're at, you'll probably come back in at that ship, but it may have the possibility of timing out. So if it's not a certain amount of time, somebody may be able to steal it. So that's it for this episode of the Inbox. Again, we're going to start with fresh questions, so if you have them, get them in. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more, and have a good day. Take care.